everybody. Jason here at The Game Warrior, and today we are going to talk about Oathsworn Into the Deepwood. So this is a mini review, and I'm going to promise to you right now that there's no spoilers involved. Let me give you a frame for where I'm at in the game. We have just completed the second encounter. I believe there are 21 of them. So we've just completed about 10% of the game. Unfortunately, Halloween is coming up this weekend, and so we're not going to be able to play, but it looks like it's going to be about 2 weeks out. Today is Tuesday, by the way, as I record this, and right now, as I speak, Oathsworn Into the Deepwoods is up on Kickstarter, the second printing. So I hope this video is relevant to you as you maybe decide whether you want to back it or not. Now, before we start, you've got to understand, and I think you already do, that this is just my opinion. So take it with a grain of salt, right? Second thing that you probably already know if you're even contemplating this is that this game is popular. It's going to be number one on many people's top 10 lists. It is big, and it's got people talking about it, and they're excited. Now, is all of that real? Is it worth it? Like, what's really going on? And so I'm just going to sit and have a talk with you about it and give you just a rounded view of it so that you have more information from someone maybe that you like to listen to, hopefully, and maybe someone you trust. Okay, so this game, let's just start with, is a boss battler. So what does that mean if you don't know what a boss battler is? You're going to play a character, okay? You're going to play a person, a little miniature, and as you're represented in the game by a miniature. You could also do a standee version, which is cheaper. So you're represented by this miniature, and there's this big board, and then there's another miniature, usually one, but sometimes more than one, bad guy, and he's called a boss, right? And you and your other three characters, there's always four characters, always four, have to defeat this monster, and he's a boss. So it came back in the old days from the video games where you'd go through a level and fight, and then you get to the end of the level and you have to fight a boss. It'd be the boss battle. And that boss battle would always be bigger and more difficult than the battles leading up to it. Now in this game, 90% of the battles leading up to it, they chucked it. They're gone. So you don't have to deal with that. So there's no sense of grind. Now, if you've heard me talk about grind, it's one of the things I hate the most about these big campaign games, where you just have to go grind it out to gain power, to gain magic items, to gain weapons, to gain enough of whatever, to beat the boss. And so sometimes you can just go and grind. It's called a grind because you're just gaining power. This game, for the most part, skips that entirely. So it's a boss battler, but there's another part of the game that's really, really cool. And in fact, so far, it's been my favorite part. This is my favorite part. So there's, on one side is a story, and then on the other side is the encounter. That's the boss battler. So you start with the story, and there's this wonderful app with this wonderful voice actor, and you have your little miniature on a map. It starts in the city. I don't know if it's going to change later on. I have a feeling it will. And you go to different locations in the city, and it's the story. And you meet different people. So it's a little story section. They say it takes about 30 minutes to an hour to play. So far, ours have taken about an hour. But then we stop and argue a lot about what we're going to do. And it's kind of like a choose-your-own-adventure with all this atmosphere. And then you have consequences to your actions. It's like, let's go over here and check that place out first. And then, oh, that was the wrong place to go. Or let's check this out. Should we help this kid? Or should we not? There's all these choices. And it's done in this rich, atmospheric way that I just love. I just love. Now, they have books, printed books, so you don't need to use the app. So if you never want to use the app, you don't have to. I would highly recommend you use the app. It's so wonderful. The voice acting, the depth, the feel of it, it's just great. And plus, it avoids the thing in a group where one person has to do most of the reading and the other people aren't really listening, or someone's stumbling over their words. The voice acting is done really well. There's a few little minor mistakes because I like to read along the book as he's talking, helps my comprehension. But for him, he's doing like 98% of the words correctly. So there's this story, and you go and you make these decisions. Now, I've only played through the story once. Some people have played through it multiple times. I've seen that, so I'm not sure how different it can be. I've heard, this is what I've heard, that it can be completely different. You know, if you go, well, you want to help this guy or go over here? And if you go over there, that's going to be totally different than if you help this guy, kind of thing. So I don't know. I can't speak to that. But I can tell you that just going through that piece has just been wonderful. And it's kind of a railroad in a way, because you're going to meet the boss at the end of that, right? You're going to meet the boss at the end of that. That's the way. But how you get there is important. And there's been a few moments when stuff has gone wrong where I've just like, oh, we are screwed. Like, I mean, and I felt that. That's exciting to me. That's fun. I mean, I love that we're involved. We're like, no, should we go this way? You know, and our group is fun because we have the one side of the group that's all like, we're just in this for money. Where's the money, you know? And the other group is like, we're here to be heroes. And so we've kind of got this little dichotomy going within the group. We're all good people and we're having fun. But, you know, it's like, let's just do it the easy way, you know? And these choices, so let me explain how this works. These choices impact you, and they'll impact you in the following ways. You can have encounters, short little encounters, but there's no grind in it. And these encounters can give you rewards. They're simple combat systems. You roll one dice and you do it or don't. And if you lose, you're going to take damage. And so everyone in this game, every character has 6 hit points of damage. Everyone, that's just what it is. And so sometimes you can get in a scuffle in the city before you go to the boss battler and you're knocked down to 5. And in fact, in our second story, we had one of our guys, Tom, he plays the Exile, and he was down to 4. He lost 2 hit points. So that was pretty bad. That was like 1/3 of his hit points were gone. So he was at 1/3 strength going into the boss battler. So those are consequences. Plus you can gain stuff. You can gain items, and you can gain these tokens that are bonuses for the battle. And those are the big things that you're really looking for, because the system, the combat system, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second, involves using these tokens at the right moment to give yourself these little bonuses. So they're very strategic. And sometimes they make the absolute difference. They make the difference between winning or losing, and when to use them and how to use them. So there's a lot of choice in them, right? There's an empower token that makes your attacks stronger. There is a reroll. You missed, reroll again. Those are really important. There's a defense. You can use a shield. There's one that gives you more animus. I'll talk to you about that a little bit later. That's your power, so you can get 2 extra power. I think there's one that moves your cards along, which gives you your abilities, I'll talk to you about that in a second, back quicker. Because there's like a cooldown process for your abilities. You have all these special abilities, but you can only use them at certain times. The battle flow token lets you move it along and get it back quicker. So, okay, the story is magnificent. So far it's magnificent. Now, I've only done the first 2. I will say this. The second wasn't as linked to the first as I thought it would be. It is linked. It's a linked story. It's 21 linked stories. There's a story going on. At least I sure hope there is. I think almost for sure there is. So the things that happen, like you're discovering something. Something's wrong in the city, and you're discovering it. And I think as you go through the 21s, you're going to become more and more powerful as you grow, and you're going to fight this guy, the bad guy at the end, whoever that may be. And hopefully it'll be a surprise and be cool, and the story will be awesome. So far, just in the first 2, I'm absolutely loving the story. I'm absolutely loving the story. But it wasn't quite as linked, right? It was a little bit linked, but not quite as I want. It wasn't as tight a connection. I don't know what to say about that other than, once I do the 3rd story, I'll be able to tell you more as I go through. And I'll come back, I'll check in with you as we keep going. As you can already tell, I am going to keep going. The group is definitely involved. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. We're definitely gonna keep going. So, then you go through that story, and then it ends about, on the app, and then you set up the battle. And that's the boss battle, right? And each boss battle so far is a thing. Like, it's a thing. It's not just like a quick D&D encounter where you're just done. It's got each of the 2 bosses we've played so far, and from what I understand, just hearing other people talk with no spoilers, that each boss is really well designed to be different. And so It's a new tactical puzzle strategy to win every single time. And so far, between the first and the second encounter, absolutely two different encounters. I mean, it was the same system, the combat system and so forth, but they did a really good job of changing that strategy and tactics. Now, the combat system is getting a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback. So you take a character, you get a character, and he has a deck, or she has a deck of 7 cards. Now these cards are your actions. That's how you do things. You also have a number of animus, which are like energy points. Energy points. And you spend them to do what you want to do. So you can act as long as you have the power or energy to do it. And so the energy system is each item or movement or thing you do costs a certain amount of energy. I'm going to call it energy. Animus is what they call it, but it's really energy. And so you have to think about what you want to do. You want to move the whole time? You can spend all 6, 7, 8, 9 of your energy and move 9 spaces. You did it. But then you can't use any abilities. So it's really, really tactical. You've got to make these decisions via the energy. The energy is really key. I don't know if you've ever played the game. Like a lot of games, they just say you get you get a number of actions. So you can move, attack, interact, things like that. They don't do that. There's no limitations. You just have energy. And I really kind of like that, right? You get a move action, then an attack, and then an interact. That's the kind of like maybe the Zombicide way. It's kind of the way we're doing it with Massive Darkness 2. But here, you just have energy. Do what you want. Just when you're out of energy, you're out of energy. And then you refresh that energy at a lower rate every round. And what I mean by lower rate is that it means it keeps refreshing at a lower rate. So you start with a lot, but then you use it up and then you get it back slower. So it's something you're always constantly working with to figure out how to maximize your abilities. So there's a lot of puzzle and tactics in just the energy system, and I think people really, really like it. But let's talk about the actual combat system and how that works. So you have your 7 cards. You have your 7 cards. Now later in the game, you're going to gain more cards and you're going to be able to create your 7-card deck. Okay? Those are your 7 actions. So there's a lot of strategy, right? And you generally, so far I've noticed you have 3 animus costing, you have 2, 3 animus costing abilities. Did I say 3? I meant 2. 2, 3 animus costing abilities. You have 2 animus costing abilities. You have 2, 1 animus costing ability. And then you have your base ability, which is a question mark. It can be many different things. And you always have to use that ability in your game. The other 6, later on, you're going to gain more abilities as you gain levels in power. And you're going to be able to make decisions of how to construct that 7-card deck. So those are your actions. That's how the combat works. And it's not just combat, but it's movement. And it's piggybacked with that energy system. Each of these cards costs something, right? Now, these abilities kind of stack and weave together to form some combos that are pretty important. So when you study your character, each character so far has been very different. Very different. And that allows each character to kind of figure out what it does and what it does well. And then figure out what your friends are doing and what they do well, and really weave together a strategy. So it's not simple. Like you got to use some thinking, and that's one of the reasons it's really popular, is that there's a payoff to this. Like weaving together how things go pays off, right? And then let me explain the battle flow system to you. Each of your items, of your abilities, those cards that you do, your 7, have a cooldown number, which means they go into slot 0, 1, 2, or 3, right? So 3 cooldown items need to go from 3 to 2 to 1 to 0 before you pick them back up. 0 items just get picked up immediately. 1 items need to go from 1 to 2 to 0. Do you understand the flow around? So an item that costs 2 battle flow is probably a little more powerful. An item that costs 3 battle flow is again probably more powerful than the others, but takes time to rotate around to get back in your hand. But when you play certain cards, you can trigger the battle flow, which is very, very strategic, right? So I opened the last game, the second encounter, with a 3. I put something in the third battle flow item. It was a ranged attack. I started with a ranged attack. My next ability, I put the second ability, also a 3. So I put 2 cards in the 3 slot. And when you put the second card in the 3 slot, it triggers the first one to move to the second. Watch what I'm doing. On my next attack, next time I was able to act and had some power, some animus to do it, I put my second item in the second slot. What did this do? This triggered that 3 card that I had moved over, boom, to come down to the first slot. The next thing I did was the 1 ability, which moved that third back to the 0 slot, and then I was able to pick it back up and use it again. And I was thinking, now, the 3 friends that I was playing with are learning with me, and I just paid a lot more attention to that than they did. And I felt very, very good with my thinking and how I planned that out and how I got my cards back quicker than they did. I'm not saying I'm better than them. I'm saying I just simply paid more attention to that battle flow thing, and it was really, really cool. Like, it was really cool. Now, let me give you a little bit of details of the battle. No spoilers. In the first battle, one person, our huntress, she died. And so when you die in this game, you get to bring in an ally and play with that ally. And then your character is alive. They're just knocked unconscious, and they're into the story. So she went into the story, and then she came into the next boss battle. The problem is what they do is they give you a little injury card, right? And so you start the battle with that injury card. So there's a price to be paid for dying. It's not as fun. It's interesting. We'll see how it works out with this injury thing. I don't know if she's going to get caught in a loop because she died again in the next encounter. So the second one, she died in the 1, died in the 2. And so she's kind of in this injury loop, and I'm wondering if she's going to be able to get out of it. And right now I'm frankly wondering if we're going to house rule that she just comes back to full health, because she's starting to go, well, this isn't fun if I'm always injured. If the injury is so debilitating that it makes me lose again. Having said that, 2 other people died as well in that battle, the second battle, me and the Exile. I chose the Harbinger. So I didn't like the Harbinger too much after the first level. I was starting to think maybe I'd chosen the wrong one. I painted it though, so I stuck with it in the second level instead of switching. I almost switched to the Ranger. But after the second level, I did my battle flow a lot better. I feel like I liked the character a little bit more. We looked at all the other characters, and there's a great, great link on Board Game Geek of everyone. Someone has looked at them all individually. Fantastic resource. And so I am thinking of switching. The Cur sounds something really interesting. Maybe having a priest as a penitent to buff everyone. I don't usually like playing that kind of character. Also, the Ranger is something to think about, or the Witch to be really cool, right? I don't know. There's a lot of different ideas. So we'll see if I switch. Right now, we have a Harbinger, we have a Huntress, who's kind of like a ranged attack. She's got these 2 Falcons that do a lot. The Exile, who's straight combat. And then we have the tank, the Ursus Warbear. And that thing is pretty cool. Tough to hurt and does a lot of damage. So what more do you want? My wife is having a great time with that. So that's where we're at. Now we do a little process. I want to talk to you about this to wrap this up. That's really cool. So I'm going to really highly suggest this if you get it, if you get the game, is that we did this first story, and then we stopped, and at the end of the story, you meet the enemy. You meet the boss. So we open the box, and it's the boss on the cover. So it's the rat. So that's a non spoiler. Everyone knows that your first battle is the rat and swarm of rats. Look at that. There's the Exile jumping. There's the Grove Maiden. That probably is the priest. And that's probably the warden. You don't get the Grove Maiden until I heard level 10. So that might be an upgrade we do then. What we did is we played that first, then we stopped. We opened the boss. We saw the rat. We painted the rat and all its rats. And then we started the next session by playing the encounter. We beat the rat. Huntress died, but that was okay. She took an injury card. And then we did the story in the same night. And the last thing we did was open the box. The last thing we did for the next monster. And then that week I painted it. That is so fun. I highly, highly recommend you try that process. And then we fought that. And then we did the story for the next one. and we open the boss for the third. We know what the boss is because we went through the story, and next time we play, boom, we're going to fight that. I'm not going to spoil what it is. But it was so exciting. We all just sit around and we're like opening the mystery boxes, and we got the miniatures. We didn't do the standees. I've heard some people say, standees is the only way to do it. You know, they're wrong. Just totally wrong. You've got to have these miniatures. I've got the big trees. I got the terrain. I got the rock walls. Oh, it's so meaty. It's so, so good. Anyways, so right now, I'm so glad I bought this, right? You know, you get that game and then you're like, oh, it didn't work. And you know my story. Bard Sung was that game for me. This one, oh, I'm excited. And look, I have ISS Vanguard. It arrived. I have Etherfields. It's there. I mean, I have two big games to play. And I'm looking at them, and I just want to play Oathsworn. That's exciting. That's the kind of game you want. So that's just one person's opinion on this whole thing. Now, let me do one other thing, right? I haven't heard anyone do this, so maybe someone's got to have done it. I'm not the most unique person in the world, am I? Okay, you ready? Let's see. I did this totally accidentally, but oh my gosh, they're almost exactly the same size box, aren't they? They are the exact same size box. Okay. How does this compare to Gloomhaven? Oh, I love me some Gloomhaven. I love me some Gloomhaven. And we all, cross those fingers, are going to get us some Frosthaven this year, next 2 or 3 months. I mean, the containers are on the ocean, I think. Here would be the thing. Let's get this done right now. Let's just finish this off. I have 19 more scenarios to go, and it takes a full night for them. So that's a great question. Are we going to finish? I mean, the game has got to be good. So far, it is good, but there's also the practicality, right? One night we were going to do Oathsworn. We didn't have enough time. This was the one I missed. I had promised everyone I was going to do it, and we ended up playing Foundations of Rome, like 3 games. Fantastic game. Love it. Haven't done a review for that yet, but fantastic game. So we enjoyed it. Gaming tomorrow night, which is Wednesday, we're going to play what? The Great Wall again. Oh, love that game. So will I get this done? Same thing. I haven't finished Gloomhaven. I love Gloomhaven. I'm loving, so far, Oathsworn. Will I finish it? That's the big question, right? That is the big question. Okay, so you have to make some decisions, right? How does this compare to Gloomhaven? Did you like Gloomhaven? I think Gloomhaven is a little more tactical so far, and I like it a little better. But the story on Oathsworn is way better. Like the immersive little story section. I mean, you go to Gloomhaven and it's just this little, town adventure. It's nothing compared to Oathsworn. Oh, so better story in Oathsworn? Yes. Better combat system so far? I'm not going to say that. Some people probably are. We'll see. Now let's look at a final thing to help you. The base game, the new is a standee version, is $125. So if you want this without miniatures, $125, you can play the whole game. I don't know why you would do this without miniatures. That's just my take. I don't know why you do that. Money, maybe. I've heard some people say they don't like the miniatures. I don't know. Okay. No judgment. $225 if you want to get those miniatures. $225. That's the base game. And it's going to be quite a bit for shipping, I'm sure. That gives you the Oathsworn main game and then 2 more boxes this size. It's that big for the miniatures, right? That miniatures. And then you get the app, which is free. There's some extra stuff. There's a terrain big box. So I have a 4th box this side with terrain, which got 5 trees, 6 walls, and a couple houses. Haven't seen the houses show up yet. I highly recommend it. I got it. Yeah. I got some metal coins. Of course I got metal coins. Come on. All right. So let's wrap it up. Oathsworn. Do you want to get it? Do you not? Do you already have it? Tappa, tappa, tappa. Let's hear from you. Let's start a conversation about this fantastic game. I'm only 2 episodes into the 21, and so far I am loving it. If I had to rate it, I would put it at an 8. But that's just a preemptive. Be careful. It might go to hell. It might turn bad. It might even get better. Preemptive score of an 8, and we'll see where it ends up.